partnership is critical when you're trying to go for funding. For example, if you've got like two enterprises, one of them's got £300,000 turnover, the other one's got £300,000 turnover. If you apply separately, you're only eligible to get 50% of, that value of your turnover, meaning your maximum is going to be 150. However, if both of you come together in partnership, now we can draw down something which is like 600,000. We're saying the turnover is 600,000, meaning that now we can actually get 300,000 as opposed to 100 bits. So what happens is that you're able to bid for higher amounts based on the partners that you've got. Sometimes you might have 4 partners and you're bidding for £3 million now. And that now can be divided, and you're then going to be getting greater than your turnover or equal to your turnover for the year based upon the partnership. And so the partners have to be very strong themselves, meaning that they must also have evidenced data of their interventions and must align to the same principles and pillars of your business itself. And once you begin to operate like that, that is when you'll begin to expand and move your grants from like the 50 grants to the over £100,000 type of grants that you can get, or even higher where you're bidding for, a 750,000 or up to £1 million or more than £1 million.
How do you fund this social enterprise? How do you pay for it? How do you pay yourself, your staff? How do you grow this business financially?
Right. So the safety box used to be contracted by prisons. A lot of work in prison, in fact. So we had 80% of our contracts were from prison and 20% were grants. After COVID, it switched. So we're 80% grants now and 20% contracts. What I mean by that is we're funded by the London Violence Reduction Unit, funded by the Metropolitan Police, and funded by MOPAC, sometimes funded by the Home Office to do direct interventions with young people.
So
schools.
What's MOPAC?
MOPAC is the Mayor's Office for Police and Crime.
Okay.
And so, so we're funded through these types of organizations, as well as contracted on smaller contracts from schools to deliver interventions and to do stuff like that as well. But 80% of our stuff is actually funded through grants. So within a grant, we'll have costs which are allocated for staff costs, for paying salaries, for running costs and so forth. But the issue with grants, of course, is the work that goes into actually applying for the grants. And that's why we need a different type of model in order for us to get through. Because as a Black CEO, as a Black founder, I have struggled in terms of trying to get higher volumes of income through different organizations. This is, there is research behind this which supports this, in that Black entrepreneurs do not get the same level of investment, do not get the same level of support. This is across the entire sector. We've had issues from the, equal pay in the corporate, board level, 3 times more likely to be, excluded from school. The statistics cover so many disproportionality in prison. It goes across every single place where Black people exist. And this is one problem that we've had in the safety box, in that we're probably not as far as we could be based upon this hurdle, because I know a lot of white business owners that have started further ahead than we have.
Well, just going back to that, Nathaniel, because you've worked with a lot of people and been commissioned by the Home Office. So, and you have testimonials that the safety box works. So why is it still difficult to get funding? Like, you've got the proof that, this works, the children say it works. So why is it still difficult to get grants or any other type of
there's people that live in particular areas, and there's groups and friends of friends that, I'm telling you, like, this is real talk. All right. This is real talk. This is real talk. I have sat on calls with funders afterwards, and they've given me wishy-washy answers as to why we haven't got the fund. Then we will see another larger organization that's white-owned get the money, and they reach back out to us to do some of the work, because the organization knows we do the real work. That's the realness of this. I'm not mixing my words here.
No, I don't.
When I say to you that we have achieved the numbers, we've achieved the results, sometimes it is also down to cost, because we know our value and our worth. But one thing we're not going to do is reduce the pricing that is required to run some of our interventions. We cannot adjust our pricing because we understand our worth. And oftentimes people will utilize Black services and expect it to be free. utilize black services and not pay them the same amount that they're going to pay someone else. In the sector of business, you find this with black women in the workplace that don't get the same pay as white women, black men that don't get the same pay as black men that don't get the same pay as white men. We find it also in the social enterprise sector and it's in charity space.
Right. Okay.
100% it's there. 100% it's the same.
Even in the social enterprise space as well.
Even in the social enterprise space. Even in the social enterprise space. Even in that space as well. But it has become more and more aware, and there is more organizations that are now beginning to change their face and to support black organizations simply because of what happened with George Floyd. They've now tried to really look at themselves. So now the conversation is a little bit different from how it was before. And I'm hopeful, and I'm very hopeful, in fact, for the capacity development moving forward with the safety box, simply because of more organizations now that are seeing the problem internally and are making proactive steps to make sure that their systems change.
I know you talked about how difficult it is for even social enterprises led by black founders to get funding. But I think obviously Safety Box has come to a position that it is in now, and you have been successful, obviously. So it'll be nice to hear actually sort of your funding journey and some of your success stories as to how you got funding, what you did, and any tips or advice you have for anyone in a similar situation.
Okay, so a lot of our funding has been underpinned because from about 2012, we started to get universities to measure our data. A lot of people are not successful because they don't have evidence of what they've done. And funding is really underpinned by evidenced work. So we've evidenced a lot of stuff from even soft data, of increasing motivation levels in young people. Even, hard data, which is reducing the amount of fights, let's say in prison, or reducing the amount of arrests that a young person has got because of possession of a bladed article or drugs. And so because we've got hard data, which is attached to this in case studies and write-ups, that's enabled us to ensure that we can secure bigger funds. Working in partnership has also been a key thing. So, for example, we partnered with a prison one time, whereby we managed to pull down a grant into the prison as a result of that partnership, applying for funding to the MOJ and various different organizations. Again, government bodies, collectively partners. As a partnership, we've managed to get into different types of relationships, partnering with other social enterprises, other charities to get a bigger pot of the funding. Partnership is critical when you try to go for funding. For example, if you've got like two enterprises, one of them's got £300,000 turnover, the other one's got £300,000 turnover. If you apply separately, you're only eligible to get 50% of, that value of your turnover, meaning your maximum is going to be 150. However, if both of you come together in partnership, now we can draw down something which is like 600,000. We're saying the turnover is 600,000, meaning that now we can actually get 300,000 as opposed to 100. So what happens is that you're able to bid for higher amounts based on the partners that you've got. Sometimes you might have 4 partners and you're bidding for £3 million now. And that now can be divided, and you're then going to be getting greater than your turnover or equal to your turnover for the year based upon the partnership. And so the partners have to be very strong themselves, meaning that they must also have evidenced data of their interventions and must align to the same principles and pillars of your business itself. And once you begin to operate like that, that is when you'll begin to expand and move your grants from like the 50 grants to the over £100,000 type of grants that you can get, or even higher where you're bidding for, a 750,000 or up to £1 million or more than £1 million.